Look, I love football as much as the next person out there, but football season just sneaks up on us way too quickly. It's week 10 of the CFL season. Week 1 of the preseason for the NFL is this week. And you know what? Bring it all back. Last month we had my new guest, Nick Small, on, Rick from Hamilton Sports Central on. But today it's just Nick and I rocking solos. So, sir, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad that you mentioned the preseason, the NFL starting up. I know it looks like I'm wearing tie cat yellow, but I've actually got a Laurier Golden Hawks Fear the Hawk t-shirt on. Shout out to Taylor Algersma. He's had a really good preseason camp right now with the Green Bay Packers, and you always hope that your Canadian boys play well. So I'm really excited to see what he might do.
Absolutely. It's him, Sean Clifford, and Jordan Love. That's the Packers depth chart right now, but I think it's in the reverse order. But no, it's great to see Canadian talent making waves down south. I also know as well Curtis as well as in camp with the San Francisco 49ers right now as well.
Right.
Um, Going back to last week, look, that was probably for more than anything was the Toronto game, because I'll be honest with you, when it came to the games last week, Calgary surprised me as like, okay, I think Calgary just turns into Cinderella when they play Ottawa. I don't know. Do they not like the Lumberjacks? Does Dan Adebayo scare them? I don't know.
Well,
And then you
don't
had,
sorry, don't tell them to that the first game they played because that wet weather just seemed to stump them.
and then it's just something about the wet weather in Ottawa too. They go hand in hand. And then you had Ottawa, and then not Ottawa, Edmonton, Hamilton, which Hamilton looked like they were. Edmonton was really giving it to the Ticats, but then Bo and company found a way, and then Jesus Christ, the Montreal Alouettes did not look good. But the game that we're mainly here to talk about, because it's a team that you love, it's a team that I cover and follow closely. Toronto coming up short with a 40-31 loss. It's so weird because there's not like one key component that can be blamed for it, because I feel like, for as many points as was allowed, defense made plays when they had to. Offense, besides the one interception, Arbuckle didn't play terribly. Special teams is really what it came down to, because you can't allow two return touchdowns. And then also, I don't know what to think of Winnipeg, just because like literally as soon as all that's like, especially the Tavares McFadden interception happened, my entire feed was Winnipeg being like, oh, the Bombers don't deserve to win this game. But they still won. That's the matter of the beast. And it's weird to me with Toronto, because they're a team that even in that loss didn't seem like, that they gave up or that they lost hope or momentum at all. And I think that's something that can help them going forward.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of really good points there. So the context for me, the way I was watching the game, really weird story. Maybe a premonition for things to come for the way the game went. I had a neighbor 4 doors down who constructing their house knocked down a telephone pole. So I was without power at 2 o'clock in the afternoon before the game. So I had to go to a bar and watch it. It didn't have sound, so it was entirely like having dinner with my family, soaking in, and really in a weird way, it was kind of fun and different, and I actually enjoyed it immensely following the game that way,
Yeah.
except for maybe the ending, of course. But yeah, for me, the stat that really stands out with how this game really should have been Toronto's game is that they gave up one offensive touchdown to Chris Traveler and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, yet they gave up 40 points total. That just like that stat alone, I think, just summarizes how the Argonauts just kept shooting themselves in the foot, whether it be special teams mistakes, a terrible offensive line situation where they just couldn't seem to stop anybody. That just sort of metastasized into them being into a big hole in halftime, and they just couldn't dig themselves out of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so with the special teams thing, it's weird because Mickey Donovan usually has his guys locked, and very uncharacteristic things, because it's like, the Hamilton game, defense looked very uncharacteristic. This game, special teams look very uncharacteristic, because it's so weird how they go from, I don't even want to call the Ottawa win a get right game. The Winnipeg win was a get right game. Because after Ottawa, Ryan did, when he was still pissed off the offense, he didn't think they played well. They only had one offensive touchdown. It's the same thing. Derek Sluka had the pick six, and then he had the kick six, or the fumble six, excuse me, and the kick six against Ottawa. This is a similar situation where the Winnipeg game, excuse me, defense turnovers, offense was on fire, special teams getting plays done, and then all of a sudden to then just go back to like take 2 steps back really puts them in a peculiar position, and now basically facing a stretch of 3 games going into Labor Day that are seen not only as, hey, you got to go 2-1. I think you got to go 3-0 in this next stretch of games.
Yeah, not only with special teams giving up touchdowns in a game, but it was two within a half, and in the
Yeah.
first half that just made it even worse. Um, and yeah, it's like give some of the Argos management staff a little bit of credit. Like they're trying to find pieces to put in there, but it doesn't seem whatever they do, whether it was Herman Reed and Martin this week. I think to kind of try to fill in those gaps for guys who are out, like Jeremiah Ojo, who's normally on special teams. It's just they just can't seem to get the right fit or the right piece in to make it work. And even like looking at the offensive line, I did a post probably about a week ago, maybe a little bit less than that, August 3rd. And I got really curious because this topic has came up so many times about how many players we've lost to free agency and this and that and the other. So what I did was I took the depth chart from the first game of the season against Montreal, and I took the depth chart from this Winnipeg game. I highlighted every player in yellow who played in the Grey Cup game, and I highlighted in pink anybody who was on the injured list or practice roster. And where you see the real big difference is that the offensive line for the Montreal game, where you had four, everybody on the lineup was either on the practice roster or had played in the Grey Cup. They were all in that scenario, but you had three guys who were on the practice roster last year starting, and then in this game you had three guys on the practice roster starting and two veterans. So like it it's different bodies in, but it's still the numbers to me just still seem like that it's not like they've lost everybody. There's still a lot of key pieces in there, and I'm starting to befuddle myself trying to figure out why it's not working.
Well, your best tackle getting hit by a car is a start, which, look, I'm not trying to make fun of the situation, but it's just like that's just nature of the business. Um, Dylan Giffen, too, is another one where I like the guy. It's just it always seems like something comes up where it's like, hey, he finally gets a chance to play, proven himself, gets hurt. They had to bring in Shane Richards literally off the street as a free agent, so then you're putting him in there. It's just John Bossy at right tackle. Willie Jefferson had a field day in that game. Like when he got
Yeah.
the guitar going, he's feeling good. He's feeling loose. Um, Look, I know there's a lot of people going, why did they trade Dejon Allen? I think that was a money move more than anything. It's kind of like, getting rid of Flo. But I will say this with that trade, the Cam Judge acquisition is paying off immensely. 2 interceptions with a pick six last week. Because like when that pick six happened, I was like, oh, they're doing good. And then they give up the return touchdown.
Same,
You
same,
know,
exactly.
and then you snap your fingers and a 7-0 lead turns into, oh, you're down 31-13. The other situation that I think that they have to start doing is not being as they're not going for it on third and short anymore. They're taking field goals. Like there was the one last week. I know obviously Nick had the slip when he was trying to do the handoff, but when you're at the goal line like that, like don't take the 3 points, go for it because you turn that into points, then you never know what's going to happen. And then instead of trying to dig yourself out of a 6-point hole, you're digging yourself out of a 4 or 5-point hole, which means touchdown's going to win you the game. Now I know with 6, it's the same thing, but there was more pressure on them at that point when it was 37-31 as compared to I don't know, 35-38, get down in field goal range and go instead of just trying to have to huck it up for a touchdown. So I think that there's some stuff that we need to see from this team going forward because I know there's a lot of fans that are look, there's the roller coaster too, and there's everyone out there, oh, what's going on with Arbuckle? Why don't they like? I had to watch this game with like I had like a family reunion thing, so I had to like watch that and basically say, if you follow me up for the Zoom, I will kill you. But with all intents and serious, because my uncle's a very pessimistic Argo Nuts fan that I was with, and he's like, oh, like Arbuckle, let's like put one of the other quarterbacks in, and I'm like, they're not doing that. Even during the Montreal game when Nick Arbuckle was slinging it out, I said one word, and he's like, why is he doing that? And I said this. Ryan Dinwiddie trusted him. If we go back to this time last year, Dinwiddie didn't trust Cameron Dukes to sling it out. That's why checkdowns were happening consistently. Nick Arbuckle is leading the league in passing. DeMonte Coxie is leading the league in receiving.
Mm-hmm.
So offensively, they're figuring it out. But you know what? You need to run for more than 8 yards. You need to get the ball around. I want to see guys like Dejon Brissett. I want to see Tavares Daniels, have bigger and more important roles. It was great to see Hergy get some touches as well. That was more because Kevin Mattal was a little banged up after halftime. But, it's just weird. And then defensively, though, too, like how you're saying, like they need Jack Cassar back. Wynton McManus ended up on the injury report. They didn't have Derek Sluka last week, but it is looking like he is going to play on Saturday. So for Toronto, it's not that it's time to hit the panic button 2-6, but it's like you got to be looking at Labor Day now at either 4-7 or 5-6, which I think 5-6 is the more ideal thing. I think if you're anything that's worse than 4-7, that's when questions are going to start to get asked. And I'm not saying like questions are going to get asked about like, job security, because I think Dinwiddie's solidified job security in Toronto.
Yeah, if anybody gets a free pass, it's him.
What's this team? Yeah, because that's the thing. They've won 2 Grey Cups in 3 years. That's the thing. I just think that there's some Argonaut fans out there who haven't experienced a losing feeling since 2019, to where it's like, oh, this is weird, because with Ryan Dinwiddie, and I'm going to quote Matthew Shinetti, the East floor has been their final for the last 4 seasons. The worst case scenario is East final.
Yeah.
So I still believe that there is time for them to turn it around. It's just go 1-0, 1 week at a time. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. For me, what I find is the frustration, to your point on the offense. For me, it's not so much Arbuckle's play. I've been a supporter of Arbuckle in the same way that like I was a supporter of MET back in 2021, 2022. The thing that I really noticed more as I've watched more football and I've gotten older over the years is it really, really does come down to the offensive line play. And I said that at during the first Winnipeg game in Toronto to anybody who would bother to give me the time of day. Said, yeah, you give him, I didn't even say 5. I say give him 3 seconds, and it's
sacks.
fine.
How many sacks that offensive line allowed?
Oh, really? Yeah, and well, not only that, but like the ball knockdowns too. It reminded me, to be honest, a lot. We saw it a lot from a quarterback who was legendary for the Toronto Argonauts and Ricky Ray. There was time and time I remember seeing balls get knocked down that he threw because guys got in the lanes and they couldn't give him just 5 seconds or 3 seconds to get the ball off. But if you're able to give Arbuckle just that 3-second window, he's been consistent at getting a good pass mid-range down the field, converting first downs on second and medium, second and long situations.
The other thing with this this whole scenario too, and I talked to Nick about this after the game Friday night, was just how do you move forward past going into next week? His whole thing is just, hey, the past is the past. We beat them once. We win here. We get the tiebreaker. Obviously, the crossover is still a real thing, but going back to your point, offensive line is just what's going to hold it down, because you're playing Lorenzo Malden, who always seems to have his way against Toronto when he plays. You're playing an Edmonton D-line who's they're starting to find their footing. And then you got Matthew Betts, one of the best defensive linemen in the league, before you have to play Hamilton again on Labor Day, and what's going to be a raucous. Regardless of, with Chad being on the 6th game, which I think his earliest return date is after their second bye week, there's going to be Ticats fans that are just waiting for the Argonauts to fail. So if they can build some steam, head into Labor Day, say if they go 3-1 between now and the bye week, which would end at Labor Day, 2-6 becomes 5-7. They could easily turn 5-7 into a 9-9 finish. I'm just going to say that right now. You can easily turn 5-7 into 9-9. That means they go 4-2 down the stretch. The only problem is the fact, and look, I'm not going to mention names, but that Saturday, October 4th game, for the love of God, I'm not picking sides. I'm not picking on personalities. Both fans don't have excuses not to pack it. It's a Saturday afternoon. It's fall football. It's going to have a lot of meaning to it. So get there for that game. But we'll talk about this Saturday. So I just wanted to say that for that one. But Toronto's in a position right now where I think Hamilton's due for. We'll get into game predictions in a little bit, but like, you have a Toronto team that's vulnerable, but then you have a Hamilton team that's, look, they're finding they found the rhythm. They know what to do. And just cycling back to Toronto, they're a team that won't give up, and they're a team that's not going to give up until they're told to give up. And I respect them for that. You just got to turn that into on-field results, because the slower you take to do that, it's just the longer and longer it lingers, the worse and worse it gets.
Yeah, that's the one thing I will give credit to with Ryan Dinwiddie and with this coaching staff. And it's something that I've observed myself, trying to go to camp at least once a week or practice once a week to observe it from myself. Definitely there's no signs of like this conflict, discourse, losing the room, none of that stuff. the team always puts that effort in, and you could kind of see it if you compare how the Toronto's game there with Winnipeg went compared to the Saskatchewan and Montreal game, where I tweeted myself, it basically looked like Montreal just rolled over and died at halftime. But Toronto, despite being in as big a hole, we're still trying to make plays. We're still trying to do things to dig themselves out of it.
So the thing with my thing with the Saskatchewan game, that like I didn't watch the game, but it was just self-inflicted wounds. Montreal was just not making the proper adjustments and not realizing that they're going to lay down and die. Which I still say this: if you're Montreal, was that win really going to help you with you lose your quarterback? Because the Montreal team we've seen since that, look, they had to squeak one out against Calgary. And then they got their doors blown off last Saturday night. I know there was the rain delay and everything like that, but they just did. That was on Jason Moss. That was on Jason Moss like football.
And it extends past Montreal too, because you look at Winnipeg as well. They brought Zach Claros back a week too early, and he re-injured his neck to get one game against the Argonauts, which they ended up losing and having to pull him halfway through anyways. I think it's one of these things that comes with, being the defending champion, that everybody always wants to bring their best at you, especially knowing the pedigree of success that the Argos have had over the last 3 seasons.
And with Winnipeg, I don't want to say it's over because we'll do that and then we're going to snap our fingers and they're the team coming out of one of the tunnels at Princess Auto Stadium in November.
Yeah.
But if there's ever a time where they're showing cracks of it, I think I think the difference between last year's Winnipeg and this year's Winnipeg is that last year they just lost some wonky games and they got off to a bit of a rough start. This year has just been uncharacteristically not them. Like if you look at the 2 Calgary games, they got their doors blown off once at home, which rarely happens. And then the game against Toronto, I was just like, oh, this is the team we saw in Vancouver last November. And then to your point, Chris Trevor threw 1 touchdown. And one thing I got to talk about with Winnipeg, man, Brady Oliveira has not been it. He's think besides the 1 BC game he played in, he's averaging under 10 yards a carry in a game. So
yeah.
I don't know if Jason Hogan's just abandoned him or not, but it's just like you're relying too much, on like Nick Dembski and other receivers to make plays. You got the reigning MOP in the league right behind your quarterback. Like if I'm Winnipeg, you got to start using Brady Oliveira, because if you want abandon a running back of that caliber, you're just kind of throwing your season down the drain.
Yeah, especially when you've got the backup in Strowler, who has that more kind of muscular quarterback ability to tuck and run and power run it. You should be able to do a bit more with things like the play action and the options. And for whatever reason, Winnipeg just doesn't seem to be using it to the same extent that we've seen it in the past.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that they've been doing that. But then again, look, I think for them, it's just they're kind of aging themselves out, where it's like, Zach's on the wrong side of 30, and we'll see where it goes from here, what happens to them going forward. But going into next year right now, like if you could fast forward and it's like the season ends the way it is, I don't think anyone's going to be saying, oh yeah, Winnipeg's going to, return to form, unless, Algersma does come north, which that could change things.
Yeah, that's a good point for anybody who doesn't know. El Gersma, his rights belong to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the CFL. So if there was anybody who, obviously early speculating, but if there's anybody who you'd want out of this current draft class, I think El Gersma would probably be the one.
And then Saskatchewan too. I know Jake Mayer looked really good for them in the 1 game he played. Trevor Harris has been looking good, but Trevor Harris calls it a career after this year. Watch for Jack Cohn, former Wisconsin legend, to kind of, come in and take that role for them as well. So Saskatchewan's really building themselves up great. Calgary's fine.
Speaking of other guys being built coming in, Jared Wayne, I think today or yesterday, got waived by the Houston Texans. Toronto holds his draft pick from 2023. I think it was like 16th overall, their first second round pick. So that could like the wide receiver room for Toronto is pretty good right now, but there is that possibility. You add him with what they've already got. If Malachi Polk comes back from Atlanta, that's a extremely strong receiver group.
Malachi was waived by the Falcons this past week. Just a heads up. He was waived, so he's currently a free agent. So I have two things on that. The first, I think he's going to exhaust other NFL options. I think Austin Mack did the same thing last year. The second is, if you were to bring him back, who's the odd man out? Because Kevin
Right.
Vitale's shown that he can do it. DeMonte Coxey's the best receiver in the league right now. I know Kenny Lawler's been playing great, but DeMonte Coxey's been the most consistent, just putting up numbers. DeVaris Daniels is a vet. You're not cutting him. Dejon Brissett's turning into a leader. You're not cutting him. And I don't think you're going to do Hergy, so I think it's like a Jake Herslow that would get gone. But at the same time, too, they do use Jake Herslow to an extent. We've seen that from Ryan Dinwiddie. So I just think if you return Malachi, I feel like that would be more of a someone were to get hurt, or if this receiver room wasn't what it currently is. If, DeMonte's not playing out of his mind, because DeMonte was brought back because they lost Polk. I think that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize. Because I remember when DeMonte re-signed, I thought for sure he was going to be one of those. Because you know how every year there's always, and it turned out to be Deshaun, but there's always an Argonaut who makes his way down the QEW.
Yeah.
I always thought, hey, there's a chance it's DeMonte. I thought, hey, this and this. I was texting, press box pal David Morassutti about this when he signed, and he said right away, once Polk was gone to Atlanta, he knew basically the writing was on the wall for Coxey to resign to Toronto. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about Coxey. I'm just trying to say that's what happened. He's really proven himself now that, hey, I'm a number one. I'm a dog for a reason. So that's my only thing with Polk is just if you bring him back, who's the odd man out?
Yeah, I mean the other thing too, you can always keep in the back of your mind too. There could always be a trade in the works. Like we know that there's challenges on special teams, there's challenges with the offensive line. We saw it not that long ago when we traded Curly Giddens Jr. To bring Jake Serezna, and so there's always that possibility of that as well. If you've got too many, I mean, the guy I think of when I see him practice is Sergei Mayala. He's often made some of the nicest catches in practice when I've been there, and he can barely even be on the roster most games. And same with Herslow. So it's a good problem to have, but also it does definitely pose some roster management challenges for the executive staff.
That's why they paid John Murphy and Pinball the big bucks and not us. We just talked about.
Yeah, easy to say from the high castle, the comfy armchair.
Yeah, exactly. But that's just my question with Polk. It's just who's the odd man out. And I feel like if the Argos receiver room was kind of like, because, last year the receiver room didn't really start to emerge until Chad was coming back.
Yeah.
Like they were good, but they really found their second groove when Chad came back. I think if they were in that situation right now, I could say, yeah, bring Polk back, absolutely. But right now, like I said, DeMonte's leading the league in receivings. He's about to eclipse his career high in receiving yards. He's already at I think he's 700 and something already on the year, and he's consistently getting into the end zone, and he's just getting open. That's the thing. And then the DeVaris thing, look, I do still believe DeVaris is a better receiver when Chad's on the field, and I'm going to say this with Chad for everyone out there on the 6-game stuff. His injury is one that you do not mess around with, because if you mess around with it, not only is his, football future in jeopardy, long-term stake jeopardy, just like, hey, I also think there's more mental to it than I think people are leading on as well. But then again, for people like, oh, like, why are you doing this? It was a serious leg break. You don't take it seriously. And I know there's people speculating about what's going to happen next year, but I don't want to worry about that right now. Let's worry about the then and now, which is right now, which leads into the Week 10 slate of games, as always, presented by our friends at Gents Boutique. Promo code CFL 2025, link in bio, and link on the little scroller there too. So link will be in the description, link will be in the bio for all of those stuff. We're going to start off with the BC Lions visiting the Hamilton Tiger Cats and a good old cat fight with a little basketball twist, as Hamilton's own Shea Gilgeous-Alexander will be honored tomorrow night at Hamilton Stadium for bringing the Oklahoma City Thunder its first NBA championship. I'm going to say this about this game. BC is like a better version of Toronto, where they've beaten good teams, but for some reason, when they play teams that are at a better level than them, they just find a way to crumble. And until I see Nathan Rourke, because if you think about Nathan Rourke, what he's done in 2025, he's only played well against Edmonton. And I think there's another game where he played well, but besides that, he hasn't had that game against a team that's of a better caliber in that playoff position. And so for that, I'm going to continue to ride the hot hand in Hamilton here. I think they take care of business, and I even think they covered the 3.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you there. Hamilton to win and cover the spread. It's like with Kenny Lawler. It's sort of the comparison. There's lots of comparisons you can make with Demonte Coxey in Toronto. Like it seems that that even if you try to cover Kenny Lawler, he's still finding ways to make catches. And if he's really covered, then you just throw it underneath to White or whoever else is open downfield, and they can get
Keandre
enough
Smith.
yards. Yeah.
Like that game against BC where it's like BC basically sold out to cover Lawler. And so Bo and like Scott Milanovich were like, all right, cool. We're going to use Keandre Smith. There's Greg Bell got involved in the running game. And then there's the other guy with the really long last name, which I kind of wish Rick was here because he could fill me in on it, but it's like something orange.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah. I know he was number 4. I'm gonna look it up right now just to see.
O'Leary orange? I can't remember either.
The other thing with Hamilton too, though, unlike last year, is Brandon O'Leary orange. That's who it is.
Okay, so I did have it right. O'Leary orange.
O'Leary orange, and also to Tyler Taranowski is another guy, local kid. You can't forget about in that offense. But Hamilton's defense has been playing great. BC's defense is a big reason why they're in the position that they're in right now. BC's defense, in certain cases, has either did not shown up or they've disappeared at times.
Yeah, I'm still a little skeptical, like with Matthew
Except for Robert
Benson.
Carter, who makes unreal catches.
Yeah, that was an insane catch. Give credit to him for that. That was outstanding.
Can I cut you off about that? Because I have friends from the NFL world who were basically messaging me Reddit threads of that catch, being like, "You were keeping this from me," and I'm like, "I thought you would have seen it by now. It went viral." So I'm like, "That's not my fault." It literally was, "You keep it. Why'd you keep this from me?" And I was just like, "I don't know. I thought you would have seen it. It's football."
Come watch our Canadian football games. You watch on CFL Plus most of the time for free, so you don't have an excuse.
CBS Sports Network 2 in the States.
Yep.
But yeah, with this game here, though, like I said, I need Nathan Rourke to show me before I pick them. But at the same time, too, for as much as I like Hamilton, this wouldn't shock me to see BC pull one out either. I think it's like, because I think if Hamilton were to lose, I think it's a game where just, nothing goes right, kind of like what happened to them in their first couple games. But I think that they've been doing well enough to where that kind of game is going to come against a team that's inferior. I don't think it's going to come against a BC. I don't think it's going to come against a Sask. I think if they were to have a bad game, it's going to come on like a Labor Day. Everyone thinks that they're just going to walk in and take care of Toronto, no problem. That's where I think it happens to Hamilton.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that as an Argos fan is that like it's always been kind of the cursed week for us. Never win stadium way back to now. We still don't have a very good record, even if we did have a little bit of positive momentum the 2 seasons before last. So
yep,
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, and then like for this game too. So we're both going Hamilton.
Correct.
Okay, and then Friday night, this is going to be a fun one. I'm not sure who's starting a quarterback for Montreal, although I think it might be Caleb Evans. You have Cody Fajardo coming back to Montreal. For my video, that's going to be actually is exporting currently as we're recording this. I took the over of 50.5 points for this game because I think, look, Montreal only scored 6 last week. We'll see who's healthy for them because obviously Phil Pott's been out, Austin Mack's been out, so they got to get healthy on offense. But for the sake of all of this, I want to go Edmonton, not because of what I saw from Montreal last week, but I think for Edmonton, it's now or never to get a win. You got to win one eventually. I know they've won one game. I think eventually for them to go into Montreal and win a game that, people view as winnable would be seen as a failure for them if they were to lose this game or look like their past selves.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you mentioned as well, but I think defensively, I think he missed last week, so I don't know if he's going to play this week.
I haven't seen much either, but we'll find out when those depth charts come out tomorrow morning.
Yeah. So, as you bring that up, so yeah, I'm kind of in a similar boat. I think there's that little bit of Cody Fajardo revenge tour kind of feelings within him. So, I'm going to take a gamble there, and I'll go with Edmonton to beat Montreal, especially if Montreal's 50-50 on the starting quarterback too. It's kind of similar to like what we saw in Edmonton, where going halfway between, we might use this guy, we might use that guy. It's a lot better if you just fully commit to the dog you're putting out in the fight.
Exactly. And then Saturday afternoon, as always, folks, these bet odds are brought to you by TunyBet, the official betting partner of the CFL. But this game Saturday afternoon has been billed by the CFL as the Toonie Bet rivalry game. So I'm going to change the picture for a second because if you're watching the YouTube video in the top right corner above me, what do you see there, Nick?
One of the nicest new Toronto Argonauts hats that could be yours if you show up to the game as one of the first 5,000 fans.
As well, there's a lot going on for this 3 o'clock start. 5,000 fans, first 5,000 fans through, get that nice hat, make waves.
Make them waves.
If you want to find a way to get down to the game and you don't want to pay for parking, well, there is a $10 weekend pass on Go Transit that can get you to and from any station. You want to take it from Aldershot and get off at Burlington, go right ahead. You want to, you have to get a Go bus back home, or you have to do a train and a bus, no problem. So you have $10 there. But most importantly, and I just discovered this now, it is Purelator Tackle Hunger Saturday afternoon. So if you are coming to the game, please bring some non-perishable food items. I'm not sure what the record is, but we all know who the biggest advocate for Purelator Tackle Hunger was. Rest in peace, Chris Schultz. He is getting honored Saturday afternoon as an all-time Argo. And I believe, I'm blanking on the name, but I believe it's Jack Volpe.
Nick Volpe,
excuse me, not Jack. Nick Volpe is going in as a builder as well. So I feel like Saturday, that's all going down pregame, not at halftime. So that'll be before the kick. And as well, for someone who lives further away from the stadium, I love a good 3 p.m. kickoff. So I'm very much looking forward to being there. Confirmed my attendance with Mr. Balanovich yesterday. So for this game right here, going into the nitty-gritty of it, you have a game that could essentially be a playoff eliminator not in the senses of it will completely ruin your playoff chances, but whoever were to win this game, it will basically be the difference, in my opinion, of playing must-win football in October to playing, not loose football, but like, hey, it's a weight lifted off your shoulders in October. And also, if you see me ever bending down or doing anything, I was at the cottage this past weekend and the mosquitoes got my feet, and now my feet are starting to itch. So hey, you know what? Mosquitoes suck.
Yeah, something I'll just cut in real quick. Thing to think about in the first game when Toronto played Ottawa. Don't forget the last play of the game. Toronto kicked a field goal with no time left on the clock. They missed it, and I think they still got the rouge out of it. But keep in mind that's why they decided to go those points, because I think they only play each other twice instead of 3 times.
Yep.
So that makes this game all the more important, because not only does Ottawa need to win then, but they also need to win the point differential.
They do. Ottawa needs to win on the point differential. But my big question is here, how does Ottawa do with the running game in this one? Because I honestly think more than the quarterback play, because I will say this, I do trust Nick Arbuckle more than I trust Drew Brown, is which running game is going to dominate? Is it Ottawa? Because Ottawa seems at times like the 2 games they've won, they've stuck to their running game, but also getting Eugene Lewis involved too. But I feel like they're going to have to limit who gets involved, because, you've Eugene Lewis, you have Justin Hardy. I'm trying to blank. Is Khalil Pimpleton on Calgary or Ottawa? I know Dominique Grimes went from Ottawa to Calgary, but I think Pimpleton's on Ottawa still.
Yeah, Pimpleton's on Ottawa.
Pimpleton as well. So you have this like robust game plan, but if Toronto sees that they abandon the run, Toronto will kill them. We saw that last year in the 2 games they played at BMO Field. And you know what? For all the guns and all the sticking morals, and because you're such an Argonauts fan, I think this is another game where it's not so much, oh, does Toronto get right? But it's another game where I think people see this is what the Argonaut team, this is what the Argonaut team, this is who we thought you could be, and this is what we want to see for the rest of the year. I think this is kind of a tone-setting game for them.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be a game where on special teams, on defense, and on offense, that like we can't have any more of these the turnovers, kick field goal or missed field goals, punts, kickoffs, returns, things that get returned for touchdowns. We can't let any of these self-inflicted wounds happen that we've seen these last couple weeks, because like when you looked at how everything else in the rest of the matchup went in the Winnipeg game, everything else was in Toronto's favor. We looked at the Ottawa game where everything did go in Toronto's favor, where Sluka had the 2 amazing return touchdowns off a fumble and a missed field goal. Like, you just gotta
Ryan
play
Hunter
just
caught a touchdown.
Yeah, Ryan Hunter touchdown. I thought, like, you just gotta have a good, complete game and just not make any fatal mistakes that result in 6 points going the other way. I think if you do that, Toronto should win this game against Ottawa. And to your point on the running game, what really bothered me from an Ottawa standpoint in the first game was Dan Adebayoye was outstanding in that very first drive for Ottawa, and then they just kind of seem to go away from it. So I definitely agree with you that if you're Ottawa, you definitely got to keep finding ways to feed the ball, whether it's to Adebayoye, to stand back, whoever else in your lineup.
I can just see a world where Dan has a huge game because this is a game for him that I think is gonna. And I'll say this with the Dan trade too. Great guy, comes from a great family. I think him getting traded was more of a there's not going to be the opportunity here because we all thought at the time Kadeem Carey was still going to be an Argonaut, but that's another conversation for another day. But
Yep.
I think him going to Ottawa wasn't so much about we don't believe in you. It's just we want to send you somewhere where you're going to have a chance to play and compete. So I think this is a game where he really has a chance to stick it to Toronto. He has a chance to show like him and Tommy Condell can really have the chance to go in there and say, hey, you shouldn't have given up on me. You shouldn't have given up on me. This is what you're missing out on. This is also a big game too for former guest of the show, Adarius Pickett, because we know he left on really ugly terms in 2023, and he
Yeah.
didn't play at either game at BMO Field last year because of injury. So that's going to be another one. But all in all, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But for the most part, this is going to be a really exciting game. I think this is going to be a really exciting game, and also a game I like a lot because I'm going to walk through and be like, huh. There's a carnival about to happen here starting next week, which we will get into later on. But, it's kind of like the calm before the CNE storm approaches in 2 weeks. So that's
Yeah.
another fun part to this puzzle as well.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, but no, there's a lot. There's so much going on this Saturday to where, and also it's going to be a beautiful weather day too. And like I said, 3:00 kickoff as well. Jays have been hot. They're a wagon. They're playing in Los Angeles this weekend though. So if you need something to do this Saturday, make your way on down to BMO Field, right, Nick?
Absolutely. I'll be there. I know a lot of other tailgaters will be there as well. So we're all looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And then one question for you though, for the CNE game, is there any tailgating going on or not? No, not really.
No tailgating for the CNE game. Maybe some people might try to use the lot south, like on the other side of Lakeshore Boulevard. I think people have tried it, but there's not really the same kind of proper tailgating that we see normal because of the limited access to the CNE grounds. One thing I will point out as well, going on in the CNE game, there is a concert going on at shoot, I should know the band off the top of my head, but I can't
It's
remember it.
Blue Rodeo at
Blue
Budweiser
Rodeo.
Stage.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because your ticket to the Argonauts game not only grants admission to CNE, but it also will grant you tickets to the Blue Rodeo concert. So you'll be able to do all three things on the same day with one Argonauts ticket, which is pretty fantastic.
It is, and I don't think that there's anything that's been announced yet for like to buy that because I know there is a 3-in-1 combo pack you can buy, which I think gets you tickets to everything. Like I don't know if you already have tickets to the Argo game, if you can get Blue Rodeo tickets or not, but I believe there'll be
Yeah.
more information coming out through the Argo. So if you're an Argonauts fan, you want to do that, look out for their social channels for more information. Those options become available. Saturday night is a game that I made this mistake twice, and I'm not making this mistake again. Give me the Calgary Stampeders, just so this. If you want to see a get right game, I think it's Calgary against Winnipeg this Saturday. I know Winnipeg is, and I think I'm not. I think Zach might be playing in this game,
Is
but
Vernon Adams playing for Calgary?
that's the thing I was going to say. I saw Calgary reporters today. It's looking like he's going to play. It is looking like
Yeah.
Vernon Adams is going to play on Saturday. PJ Walker, good lord, did not look good in his game last Thursday night. I think this is a game that Calgary gets right in. I think this is the game where they get right in because also to remember, they dog walked the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. I know the Bombers are playing for pride. I think the Stamps are trying to play to show that, hey, the last 2 weeks weren't us. For VA got hurt, VA didn't play. VA comes back. I think Calgary takes care of business, no problem.
Yeah, not only it's Calgary's at home as well too, which I think builds off those vibes that they had from the Stampede Bowl.
Exactly, which I did learn with that. Apparently, it is going to be Winnipeg versus They do want to do it going forward, but I think it is always going to be Winnipeg and Calgary, which I don't have a problem with. I think it'd be cool to get other teams involved, but I think if you can get Winnipeg, Calgary, just because you build it where there's two fan bases coming in, that they're the same fan base that will travel, will come in. Because I'll say this too: 2 weeks ago at BMO Field, I was shocked at the amount of Blue Bombers fans that were in attendance.
Yeah, there's a pretty good amount. It was funny too because there were also a number of Riders fans that were there just to chirp the Bombers, which I thought was hilarious.
There's something about a rivalry like that that's just fun, where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm literally here because I don't like you.
I know 100% that there was at least two Toronto Argonauts fans that went to the Edmonton Hamilton game that I guess lived in Edmonton, but there were two Argos fans who were at that game specifically to boo the Ticats as well. So yeah, it doesn't matter where you go, that the rivalry aspect of the game transcends the entire nation, which is fantastic as a fan.
Oh, 100%. And also, too, I am looking at the map for Saturday. It is looking pretty okay as of now. There still is quite a bit of seats available, like along the east, the south, and the west stands. But I do think that by game time, I think they might have some walk-ups. They might have some other stuff. So I think it could be good. And then I just want to pull up yeah, and then the game against BC is looking pretty good right now. So I think BC, hopefully it gets over 15. Hopefully it gets like closer to 17. But if they can get anywhere over 14 for this Saturday, I think that's a win for MLSE.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, especially with the CNE being included, it's just such a great value because then if you factor that in, like the cheapest tickets, like you're paying, I think, $10 at most for the ticket into the Argonaut game compared to what you're paying for just general admission to the CNE. So it's like a kind of why wouldn't you?
Well, I was saying too for this Saturday, hopefully they can get a good number, and then
Oh
hopefully
yeah,
they
yeah,
get
that as well.
yeah. Because I think too, if they go out and they like say if they get a good number for Saturday, they go out and they win, that's just going to drive more people to want to come to that CNE game as well. So we'll have to see what happens, but you also have you always have great games, but I feel like this week you really have games that can help dictate where teams go for the rest of the year. Like for the Argonauts, does the ship sink a little bit more, or do they bring it back to floating ground and keep on pulling together? And with BC, it's a team like how loud's your roar, or is the tiger gonna roar louder than the lion? And then you have I saw a comic book from the 1960s where it was literally a literal Eskimo killing like the alouette bird, and I was just like, "Oh my god,
Jeez.
that's funny." But no, it's just like you have 4 games with 4 great storylines, and it's just going to be fun to see, who pulls off victories in these ones. But yeah, that's all I got.
And meanwhile, Rider fans get to drink their watermelon smoothies and sit back in the recliner and enjoy the carnage.
With a few old style pilsners. Um,
Yes, yes.
that
Maybe keep it in the watermelon, like to keep it cool.
Ooh, that's a nice little touch there. I think that's something that they probably going to be doing out in the middle of the prairies, and also watching hopefully their Bombers lose Saturday night. Because I'm only saying that because they'll bring a smile to their faces because I already know Riders fans are looking at November where they want to go in to Princess Auto Stadium as the West representative for the Grey Cup.
Absolutely.
Nick, week 10 of the CFL season's kicking into full gear. It was a blast getting to chat with you as always, guys. At Nick Small 38, link to the Twitter will be in the bio. Give them a follow. Argo's Bounce. What's going on there this week?
Yeah. So currently at this moment, Chris and I are still trying to figure out our schedule so that we're able to do one coming up. Yeah, as the aforementioned telephone pole incident, I was unable to do the one last week. So Chris had a guest fan from St. Louis who's an Argos fan, so that he did the show with instead. So you can go ahead and check that out, and then so we'll have an episode coming up probably within the next couple days, hopefully. So you can come check us out there.
Amazing. Well, anyway, if you want to come to the game, all that stuff, link in the bio. Week 10 of the CFL, week 1 of the NFL preseason as well. All I got to say is it's a great time to be a football fan. For Nick Small, I'm Griff. This has been episode number 373 of YWC Football Talk. We'll be back next week to talk more CFL. Have a good one.